You're listening to Should You Read It? Should You Read It is a weekly podcast that looks at books that can help business owners. I provide critiques and recommendations so that you don't have to wade through everything out there and can get back to running your business. Additionally, with each weekly book, we'll look at how it relates to other books in its field and what ideas cross over along all the books that I've read. We all try to balance work and life, but splitting them might be a false dichotomy. That split is what we're going to look at in Should You Read It episode 7 as we look at Personal Kanban. Work-life balance, the elusive word idea thing that we strive for. What does it mean to be balanced in work and life? Does it mean that we spend 8 hours a day working and then 8 hours a day with family every day? Does it mean that we spend all of our time working and then create some epic trip or event to balance out the other aspects of our life? Much like the authors of Personal Kanban, Jim Benson and Tawny Ann Marie Berry, I think that this is a false separation. Here's a quote from them. Professional life, personal life, social life, they are often treated as separate entities, but our lives and insights cannot be segregated. Work-life balance is a false dichotomy. Compartmentalization is not sustainable. It forces life's professional, personal, and social elements to vie for attention, bringing with them seemingly competing expectations and goals. It's all life. Work is life, family is life, volunteering is life. We do tasks in each area. Accomplishment and recognition across all areas is what gives us a feeling that we're achieving what we want to in life. Making progress in these areas of our life is what we want in our quest for significance. I like the idea of counterbalance here, which comes from the one thing. In that book, Papasan and Keller suggest that you go short at home and long on work tasks. That means you spend some time focusing on work, but it's short, and you spend some time at home with those you love as well. You never let home get too far out of balance. Email, leave it. Calls others want to schedule because they think it's important can wait a month or two. You can go out of balance for a while here at work to focus on the one thing that will push your business forward. This is where Personal Kanban steps in. It's intended to be a system that can manage work and personal items all in one. It's ludicrous to assume that what we have to do outside of work will have zero impact on our output in the office. I sit here on a tough day thinking about this. In around 6 hours, I'm headed out to the vet to have our dog put down. She's been my hiking companion for 12 years. We've been all over the mountains and camping. She's been silly and annoying and sick and wonderfully comforting. Assuming that I could do a regular work day today or tomorrow is insane. But if I was at a traditional job, that would be the assumption. I'm lucky in that I work for myself and I can decide to spend a few hours writing and then call it a day. I can decide to spend the afternoon on the couch loving my friend of 12 years. You need to recognize that work and life are inseparable as well. The sooner you do, the better you can plan your work. There are really only 2 rules in Personal Kanban. First is visualize your work, as in put it on something like sticky notes so you can see it all. The second one is limit your work in progress, which they call WIP. So only have 2 things on your at a time on your doing list. Everything else is in some other list. Here's a quote from the book. We were visualizing work, limiting our work in progress, pushing decision-making to the last responsible moment, and continuously striving to improve. We learned that understanding our work is the key to controlling it. The key here is understanding your work. I've been feeling this lack for a while. Do I have a handle on how much time everything I do takes? Do I know exactly how many hours or units of output I can have in a week? Without knowing these things, how can I plan for a work week that provides the maximum value on the things that matter? Do you know what your real output is for a week? What will it take for you to know these things for your business? My guess is no. You have no idea. When a new project comes along, you guess. You may say you estimate, but that's more likely a fancy way of trying to convince yourself that your guess is informed. To help this, Personal Kanban introduces the idea of gauges. Here's a quote from the book. We don't dare drive without watching the road or checking our gauges, but oddly enough, we manage our work blindly all the time. We don't visualize our tasks or rely on informed radiators to alert us when our work might veer off track or require intervention. At best, we use deadlines to track our progress, even though deadlines are imposed, inflexible, and often don't respect our current context. Based on assumptions about the future, deadlines fail to take into account actual real-time information. Now for personal Kanban, gauges substitute deadlines. Gauges visualize our work. Gauges mean we start tracking our time on tasks. This is why I know that most freelancers have no idea how much time it takes to do anything. So many of them aren't tracking their time. Now, there are 6 steps to personal Kanban, and many of you will be familiar with them if you've done any type of system like GTD or any other productivity system before. Step 1 is the brain dump. This is your big list of everything you have on the go. Paper the walls with your sticky notes. Get it all out of your head. You're going to realize that you've got way more on the go than you thought. It may take one big session, then a few small ones as you realize that you have more on your mind. Don't worry about organization at the beginning. Just do the work. Get it out of your head. Step 2 is the value stream. This is where you figure out what list you need to keep things in. Most often you'll see something like this. You have your backlog, which is your main brain dump. You have the things that are ready. These are things you could do. You have your next list. This is the top priority to pull from next. Your doing list. This is limiting your work in progress, 2 items. And your done list, which we'll come back to in a bit. Step 3 is your backlog. This is your brain dump. All the things you could possibly do, not just work stuff, but personal stuff as well. We keep this list around so that we have a handle on it. Here's a quote from the book. The thing is, we tend to fear what we don't understand. If we don't understand something, we can't dispel it. If your backlog, the sum of our personal goals and expectations, is unknown, and if as humans we tend to fear the unknown, then we risk fearing our own success. If you're a GTD person, you'll recognize this idea. In GTD terms, you'll waste brain cycles on tasks because you're just trying to remember them. Step 4 is establish your work in progress, or WIP. Step 4 is about limiting this work in progress. Here I like the idea of the rule of 2. No, not the Sith Lord rule of master and apprentice only, but the rule that you can only have 2 projects on the go at once. Here's a quote from Paid to Think. Too many projects overload people with too many thoughts, details, and activities, which ultimately leads to decreased performance levels. Like an instance where an individual is working on a spreadsheet, becomes interrupted, loses his or her train of thought, and makes a small error in calculation that could snowball into disastrous results later. Again, that's from Paid to Think. Too many things on the go mean that we leave things in a state of half-finished. That leads to brain power being spent on those half-done projects. The book recommends you limit your work in progress to 3 things and then see what works for you. 4 is fine, 2 is fine. I'm going to say only 2. If that's 2 client projects, that's fine. If it's a client project and an internal project, also fine. I come to that conclusion after reading Paid to Think. Watch for that in an upcoming podcast. The only other thing that you can have outside of those 2 projects is the little things that keep your business running, like checking email, publishing your blog posts. Step 5 is pull tasks. This is a hard one as you look at client services. Client services mean that people push tasks on you. They have an issue with their site, they have a question for you. They push those tasks towards you and have an ideal date that you should be getting them done. In contrast, Personal Kanban is a pull-based system. You pull tasks into your doing pile as you have the bandwidth to do them. Here's a quote from the book. Personal Kanban is a pull-based system. We pull work into doing only when we have room to accommodate it. Pulling is a willful act. This is different from pushing, which is how we normally take on work. In a push-based system, people tend to tell you what to do and when to do it, regardless of whether you have the capacity for it or if it really is the highest priority task at the time. I'm not sure I have an answer for this yet. My best guess for freelancers is that you have your 2 projects. You only pull another one when you have a space open up. Until then, new clients wait. If that sounds scary in the finances department, you're running a business that is broken. So get it on track. If you need to, you should look at profit first as a way to get your business budget on track. There's a link to that in the show notes. Step 6, reflect. Now we get back to that done column we talked about earlier. Instead of checking off your tasks and then they're gone, you sit back and reflect on how much work you got done. This is also a time when you look at your whole board. One thing that happens is tasks get stuck waiting for someone. Remember, one of the rules is to visualize your work in progress. If you're waiting for someone, then this needs to be reflected in your board. Here's a quote from the book. Every time your work involves another person or something happens outside of your immediate control, make sure it's reflected in your board. Now, going further in the book, some new lists get added. They introduce the idea of a pen, which is a holding place for tasks that are partway done. Maybe you're waiting for something, so it goes on that list. The rule with the holding pen is that you need to pull tasks from there first before you can empty out any of your other lists. They also introduced the idea of a TwoDay column. This is for tasks that we want to get done today. The warning is that we need to make sure this list isn't so overloaded that we couldn't do it. Michael Hyatt echoes this in The Best Year Ever when he talks about setting goals in the delusional zone. The delusional zone is so far outside our current possibility that we may as well be wishing on a magic genie to make the goals happen. We all fall into this sometimes. We build wish lists that anticipate everything going perfectly. This is where our gauges come into play. Make sure that your list for the day matches up with the gauges you have established. That's the essence of the system. The rest of the book helps you work through what it might mean to practice it and implement it for yourself. Benson and Barry introduce us to more of the issues we may have as we implement personal Kanban. Now here's another quote from the book. All too often we equate free time with capacity. We assume that if we don't have an activity scheduled, we can fit in more work. Optimal highway travel is not achieved by putting as many cars as possible in the space that the road provides. That's optimizing for capacity, and we call it rush hour. Nobody moves. More people travel at a better speed on a highway by leaving room, and that's optimizing for flow. Here's another quote from the book. We rush through one thing to get to the next, striving for quantity, and in brackets productivity. When we know quality, again in brackets effectiveness, will surely suffer. We need to optimize for flow, not capacity. Having 27 things checked off your list doesn't mean you did anything worthwhile today. We should be striving for effectiveness, not just productivity. Productivity always seems to be getting more done. Effectiveness is getting less done overall, but more things that matter. We do these things that matter with full focus instead of a focus split between a bunch of crap that brings little value to our business. Now, on the note of gauges, emotions can be a bad gauge. Here's a quote from the book. With no objective measure, our emotions are the only metric we have to rely on. This is where our feet are sore at the end of the day, or we saw something awesome on a bit of a walk, so we estimate that our daily steps are high. Our emotions do a poor job at specific gauges. When we check our Fitbit, we find that we actually barely moved. This step measuring device is a much better real-world gauge of our activity level. This is where we build our wish list. We assume everything is going to go perfect, and when it doesn't, we're baffled about missed deadline. Our gut is good for telling us when we're overloaded, giving us that feeling that, whoa, this is way too much. But it's terrible at telling us exactly how much work we can get done in a day. The final big idea is that we should be striving for improvement. We're not looking for perfection out of the gate. We're only looking to do a little better each time. Now this is measuring the gap and not the game. Measuring how far we've come, not how far we have to go to hit that ideal. As I learn to draw in the evenings, this is looking at how much better I've gotten in the last month, not looking at how good the teachers are that I am learning from. One gives me pride, measuring the gain. The other shows me how bad I still am, measuring the gap. Now to wind up, as usual, should you read Personal Kanban? Is this a good book? Yes, it is. Should you read it? Yeah. If you're looking for new ideas to measure your week and get important work done, this is a great book for you. If you're looking for a specific step-by-step process, then Personal Kanban may leave you feeling a bit put off. It's great on the theory and provides some examples, but the authors feel that each system needs to be tailored to you. They stay light on the prescription for where to start because you got to make it your own in their eyes. If you're looking for more prescription, then take a look at my review of Extreme Programming or watch for my upcoming look at the book Scrum. Thanks for listening to Should You Read It? To support the show, you can leave me a review in iTunes or heart or a star in whatever podcast player you use. These help more people find the show. If you want to get more reading done, you should also look at an Audible membership. If you get one using curtismchale.ca/recommends/audible, that will support the production of the show financially. Next episode. If you're having trouble shipping work, then maybe you've come across the book Execute, which hopes to show you how to get things out the door. Well, maybe you should wait until episode 8 though, when I'll give you a look at this book Execute and how it works for your projects.